It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the movies of January 8th, 1993. Or in this case, I should say just one movie, because we only had one movie that came out this weekend. And it's a movie has a huge cult following and has a name that you may be very familiar with. So let's go ahead and get into that movie, and that movie is the cult comedy horror film, which is Leprechaun. So the interesting thing about this movie, you can kind of tell from that trailer alone, they sold this as a straight-up horror movie. There was no elements of comedy in any of the marketing in this movie. Even if you look at the TV spots for this, they went strictly for the horror aspect because it's a January movie, and usually this is the time when this is the perfect time to release a movie like this in January, because there's no none of the big movies come out during this time. At least back then they didn't. So this was the perfect time to do it, and sure enough, this movie did pretty well with a budget of under $1 million. It nearly made 9 times that amount and went on to have this huge cult following. And if you watch the movie, you can kind of see why. I mean, for Warwick Davis, this was kind of his big breakout movie, even though the movie Willow, which came out 5 years prior to this, that was supposed to be like his big breakout film. And it just didn't happen that way. Willow did not do well at the box office. It didn't have that cult following that eventually would lead to its success later on down the road. But this was kind of another one of those. This was the movie that I think was supposed to do what did for Warwick Davis what Willow was supposed to do for him 5 years prior to this. And the movie really works because of him. Like, it's because of Warwick Davis that he injected humor into this role, and they added more reshoots to add more increased gore to appeal to older audiences. And that meshing works really well here. It works because Warwick Davis just fits this role so well, and the fact that he made this role more humorous than it needed to be, I think it makes this movie stand out more than what this could have been. I mean, there are moments in this movie where he's really committed to this role, and he does have some really fun, over-the-top moments and line readings. Like, whenever you hear him scream out, "I need me pot of gold," like, "I need me pot of gold!" Like, it's hard not to laugh at that, but it's also hard not to be intimidated by this little guy, because he really is like, I love the way that this movie combines comedy and horror. I mean, those increased scenes of gore that they added in here, they work so well here. It's so over the top, it's so incredibly gory that you can't help but really just admire how far they went with this. And of course, I talked about the name that you may be familiar with. Of course, Jennifer Aniston is in this movie, and this was one of her first movies that really ignited her career, because prior to this, she was in a short-lived Ferris Bueller series, which I believe also had Sandra Bullock in it too. I could be mistaken on that, but I think she was also in that show too. I might have to look that up again, but I know Jennifer Aniston was in that Ferris Bueller series. But of course, this movie came out 18 months before she would find success on the show Friends. And for what she had to do in this movie, she's perfectly fine in here. I think the casting overall is pretty solid. You can just tell the people who made this movie were clearly having the time of their lives. It's so cheesy, it's so over the top, it's so gory. It just meshes together so well and makes for a really fun movie that even if you don't like horror movies, like, I'm not the biggest horror movie type of person, I can still find a lot to enjoy about this movie. It's not quite Evil Dead levels. Like, I think those movies really are the ones that stand out the most in the horror comedy genre. You can definitely see in this trailer they are trying to mimic the same type of Evil Dead type of camera angles, and most of the time it doesn't really work in this movie, but the movie itself works on its own because of the fun they're having with this, because of the fact that Warwick Davis is putting his all into this. It's just a movie that's just a ton of fun to watch. Like, even if you don't like these type of movies, you can't help but get invested by this movie. It's just so much fun to watch. It's a wonderful time to watch, and it's just a hilariously fun, gory, insane good time. I can't recommend this movie enough. And I mean, this series alone has some fun movies, even though those movies are also very corny and very cheesy. I mean, come on, Leprechaun to the Hood and Leprechaun Back to the Hood. I mean, Leprechaun in Space, like, they went so nuts with these movies that you can't help but just really admire the level of insanity they go with these movies. And I mean, what can you say more about this movie? It's just a ton of fun. I can't really recommend this movie enough. If you haven't seen it already, and you like these type of horror comedies, do yourself a favor and watch this movie, because it's definitely well worth a watch. Leprechaun, don't mess with this pot of gold, or else he'll come and kill you in the most bizarre way, shape, or form. And so on that note, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. Next time, we'll look at the middle of January 93, January 15th, with 4 movies, including the escape thriller Alive. We also have Nowhere to Run, Body of Evidence, and also Man Bites Dog. So 4 movies to look at next time around. We'll do just that on the next episode. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you for watching. I'll see you next time, and until then, as always, take care.